Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. Government committed to meet the needs of the business community. Public Administration Minister says the public service holds the key to improving the ease of doing business. And Chutney Soca Monarch for Indian Arrival Day. Thank you for joining us. To our top story. The Minister of Finance and the Economy, Senator the Honourable Larry Hawai, is committed to ensuring the government's fiscal policies meet the evolving needs of the business community. He displayed this commitment as he undertook mid-year budget review consultations with stakeholders in the business community.
At the meeting with members of the business community, Minister Hawai says he wants to ensure that fiscal measures put forward in the 2013 budget are having the intended impact. He explains the business community will know best if the government's strategy to return to economic growth, sustainable capacity, and encourage resource and knowledge development is successful so far. The Finance Minister says this is why the government has undertaken economic growth strategies, which he hopes will work in tandem with policy measures aimed at spurring robust, sustainable development. The Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the American Chamber of Commerce, the Employers Consultative Association, the Greater Chaguanas Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the Tunapuna Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and the Energy Chamber were all represented at the consultations. In a release issued today, Minister Hawai says he agrees with the business representatives who believe there is a need to focus on the economic diversification strategies and the broadening of the foreign exchange earnings base. He also assures business leaders that he would explore the potential for government-to-government arrangement with the United States regarding the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. As this first ever post-budget stakeholders meeting ends, the Finance Minister is encouraging business leaders to engage the Ministry of Finance and the Economy in open and continuous communication as it serves to benefit the entire nation. Gregory McBurney, News 4.
Caribbean community foreign ministers met for 2 days of discussions here amidst calls for the region to adopt a new paradigm in dealing with a changing global environment. Foreign Affairs Minister the Honourable Winston Ducaran, an incoming chairman of the CARICOM Council, says the region needs to adopt a new approach to its foreign relations if it is to move forward in a changing world.
A call for regional partners to change the culture in which they respond to matters of diplomacy. Foreign Affairs Minister Winston Ducaran made the call as he addressed his CARICOM counterpart during the Council for Foreign and Community Affairs COFCOR meeting this week, held here in Trinidad and Tobago. The incoming chairman of the CARICOM Council, Winston Ducaran, says this was necessary as global changes forced numerous countries to adapt to deal with these unexpected forces that alter economies and relations.
So the question now, as we meet here in Port of Spain, is, has Caribbean diplomacy lost its magic? Is this the question that really makes the timing of this meeting very significant? Time is not on our side. We are indeed living in a world and an era of fundamental and momentous change. In the world where a new independence is beginning to shape. How do we now restructure our thinking to embrace the new geopolitical framework in the formulation of our foreign policy? And then, how do we construct tactical and strategic alliances for the transformation of the international system and key international institutions?
He says this new frontier for Caribbean convergence seeks the development of the region's citizens.
We also look at the new economic forces that are engaging many countries in the world. The forces of convergence, as I call it, which goes beyond borders and beyond integration movements, and has therefore put at risk the traditional diplomacy based on multilateralism in trade negotiations. Perhaps now the response will have to be a new diplomacy based on a multi-track policy on trade negotiations, for it is not easy for the world to be compartmentalized by national borders and integration movements. It is an opportunity to define the strategic framework consistent with new global development, to identify critical convergence strategies and drivers of convergence in the economies of the Caribbean Sea.
Minister Dukran emphasized this point as one critical and in dire need of being addressed, as CARICOM consisted of mostly small island states and needed a new approach in foreign relations.
The two most fundamental questions that must be asked: what can small states like ours gain from participating in international cooperation? As fundamental as it is a question that we must ask. And as a consequence to that question, we must also ask, what can small states like ours contribute to the strengthening of international cooperation?
The Foreign Affairs Minister announced plans to establish an academy focused on training solely diplomats at the University of West Indies campus, St. Augustine.
It was agreed to establish a diplomatic academy at the University of the West Indies here in Trinidad and Tobago as an added branch to the Institute of International Relations. The Diplomatic Academy will design and develop a series of programs so as to provide intense dialogue, training, and very specific issues of how diplomacy must be conducted in the world ahead of us.
This year, COFCOR focused on international development cooperation, preparing a coordinated approach to 2013 and 2014 multilateral engagements with a focus on hemispheric and international organizations and matters relating to community relations. Kimberly Ram-Calawan, News 4.
When we come back, improving the ease of doing business through the public service. Stay with us. Minister of Public Administration, the Honorable Carolyn C. Prasad-Bechan, says the public service holds the key to improving the ease of doing business in this country.
Minister Bechan makes this claim as she addresses the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce Caribbean Facilities Management Conference. She says the ease of doing business is an important tool to measure the progress of the public service transformation process. The minister adds that there seems to be a national issue with productivity levels in employees, but once it is addressed in the public sector, the country will see a change.
The Chamber was right to question the national commitment to productivity and to identify what needs to be done in the future. All the causes listed were valid: low levels of labor productivity, high absenteeism and turnover, shortage of skilled local employees, poor customer service, difficulty in retaining the best employees, and low levels of technological innovation and knowledge transfer. These are also issues that are grappling within our efforts to transform the public service of Trinidad and Tobago. We are especially concerned about the ease of doing business, since there is no question that the public service has a major responsibility for the present problem and can be the single most important contributor to making it easier to do business in our country, thus contributing to improving our ranking in the Global Competitive Index.
Meanwhile, Minister Bechan says the government has already taken one route to address the low productivity levels. She reveals that government has recognized the relationship between productivity and comfortable working conditions, which is why they have embarked upon a mission to provide public employees with a certain level of comfort at work.
The outfitting policy is designed to maximize workflow, facilitate ease of e-government, ease of repair and replacement, and lowered capital renewal and operational costs over the life of the facility, encouraging green and smart energy efficient buildings. All of this to ensure that we accommodate teamwork, natural lighting, natural ventilation, and the impact it will have on productivity.
Minister Bechan says there are also plans to introduce other initiatives to increase productivity.
There will be flexi time and flexi space involving hot desking, more flexible shift patterns, greater home working, greater focus on enjoyable working environment, and the impact on business performance. This sharing of space reduces the cost of operations and helps us to better manage the taxpayer dollar. It will help to make the country more productive. Think of the minimization of traffic jams, for instance. This coming to Port of Spain at 5 o'clock in the morning. Think of the ability to access government services from your home or from any government ministry or department.
Gregory McBurney, News 4.
The family unit has been described as a social institution to which every person is most familiar with, and in recognition of this societal pillar, the United Nations has designated May 15th as International Day of the Families. Here in Trinidad and Tobago, Gender, Youth and Child Development Minister, the Honorable Marlene Coudray, paid tribute to the day by calling on families to unite within communities in an effort to strengthen the nation as a whole.
It's been said the family is both the fundamental unit of society as well as the root of our culture. And in celebrating this foundation of our society is the Ministry of Gender, Youth and Development in accordance with the United Nations, which recognizes May 15th as the International Day of Families. This year's theme, Advancing Social Integration and Intergenerational Solidarity, revolves around families holding significance as fundamental units of humanity and a chance for government, organizations and individuals to encourage family togetherness, knowledge and awareness of methods to advance social integration and intergenerational solidarity. Gender, Youth and Child Development Minister Marlene Coudray notes in recognition of this, programs were organized to commemorate the day by emphasizing support to families in the execution of their duties. Through this, she notes it is apt to encourage the intrinsic potency of families, counting their immense ability of self-reliance and self-sustaining activities. She says working together as a society will strengthen individuals, family and community, as well as aid at eradicating the challenges we face as a society. Minister Coudray says positive family values can be transferred from generation to generation to ensure strong families, communities and by extension the country. She adds that we must remember to be keepers of our children, siblings, neighbors, children, as well as the community, as this will foster the advancement of social integration and intergenerational solidarity. In 1993, the UN declared the International Day, which reflects the importance the international community attaches to families. The UN notes this provides an opportunity to promote awareness of issues relating to families and to increase the knowledge of the social, economic and demographic processes affecting families and to showcase the significance of families. The day also seeks to promote impartiality, bringing forth a fuller understanding of the need to share in household responsibilities. Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
When we come back, the Ministry of Sport launches their website, and Wayne Cunningham was there. Stay with us.
Social integration.
The Ministry of Sport unveiled its latest strategy in the effort to establish itself as a premier provider of policy direction and professional services for sport development. With the launch of its new website, the VIP room at the Hazley Crawford Stadium was abuzz with technology on Wednesday. Wayne Cunningham has the details.
Leading sports figures and stakeholders were in attendance at the Hainsey Crawford Stadium for the launch of the Ministry of Sport new website. Mr. Andre Hanif, Information Technology Manager at the Ministry, gave some insight into the latest development tool.
At the Ministry of Sport, we are cognizant that the mere delivery of community-based and national sports services is not adequate if it does not reach the masses in a relevant and meaningful way. In this regard, ladies and gentlemen, our master strategy speaks to the utilization of appropriate technology, research, and best practices for the delivery of professional sporting services. This technological thrust of the Ministry's strategic plan finds its genesis in Pillar 4 of government's policy framework for sustainable development, which drives information and communication technology as an essential element of national development.
Mr. Hanif outlined some of the features of the new site.
The site offers a dynamic platform for the showcasing of the organization's brand to the public, with a user-friendly interface and information on the ministry's structure, strategic direction, programs, projects, and policies. In addition, the portal exudes genuine Trini style, with its graphical layout in patriotic red, white, and black. These colors, the world will associate with our athletes' excellence in performance.
The site was developed totally in-house, using the ministry's personnel. Content manager Mr. Brian Gray spearheaded that team.
The previous website was built by an external company. However, the permanent secretary, Mr. Ashwin Creed, in his wisdom on learning of the expertise within the ministry's own IT unit, made recommendation that the website be developed in-house by the very consistently high-performing IT unit, thus saving the taxpayers thus saving the taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars. Today, the website that we are launching is capable of handling streaming video and video on demand through our video library, which contains videos hosted on our YouTube page. It can easily live stream events.
One major feature of the site is its ability to be accessed by mobile devices such as cell phones and tablets, making services and info easily available. A feature welcomed by the Honorable Anil Roberts, Minister of Sport, who was high in praise for the development team.
I'm very happy to see that we do have a topper website. I commend Andre Hanif and his entire team, the Ministry of Sport, the permanent secretary, and of course you have links to the sport company, the live sport, and I want you all to monitor the projects because a lot of naysayers, first they said it wouldn't build, now they're saying it will cost too much. It is not. We are all going to monitor the projects. We are going to get the aquatic center, the velodrome, and the tennis center on course, on budget, on time by October 2014 to December 2014. We have 9 regional centers, 4 are starting right now. We hope to complete those within 2 years. We've already started and completed 32 pavilions, and we have 32 more coming. We have facilities for upgrade. We have swimming pools to do. We have rural caravan. We have community programs. The opposition made a mistake and asked me about how many groups we help. Well, I didn't even know. Because when I started to read out, I didn't have enough question time in the whole parliament to tell you how many groups that we help per year. Over 1,572 small groups with sports days, family days, community days. It is tremendous. To all the SDOs, to all of those who work and serve the people of Trinidad and Tobago, I'm very proud. To the IT department, well done. Bless.
Trinidad and Tobago is advancing in sport on the track and in the arenas. Now we are advancing technologically. The site is www.sport.gov.tt. I'm Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
Still to come, Chutney Soca Monarch for Indian Arrival Day. The Chutney Soca Monarch competition will now become a part of the Indian Arrival Day celebrations as a way to bring together all the elements that instill pride in the Indian culture.
The Chutney Monarch competition will now be a highlight of the annual Indian Arrival Day celebrations, thereby bringing together all the elements of local Indian culture and contributions. The National Chutney Foundation of Trinidad and Tobago the Ministry of National Diversity and Social Integration and the Ministry of Arts and Multiculturalism have collaborated to ensure the finals take place alongside other celebrations on June 1st at the Four Roads Recreation Ground in Barrapo. President of the NCFTT, Dr. Vijay Ramlal Rai, detailed the format of the competition.
As you all know, I mean, the art form is not something that you are not familiar with, but what is most important is that the lyrical contents of this competition will not be the same as what you are possibly accustomed to. The format of the competition is to focus on icons of East Indian heritage that has gone, personals and so on. So you have these artists, there are 10 of them in the finals, one has just arrived. So they have to sing a composition of one of the icons on the paper I gave you, of any one of those artists. Also, they will sing one of their own compositions.
10 finalists have been chosen to compete in the competition and have been said to be among the best representatives of the local art form. The NCFTT president says the image and content of songs produced as part of the chutney art form must be changed and viewed this opportunity to begin that process. He anticipates the competition would be a signal event in future Indian Arrival Day celebrations, and it is expected that 20,000 persons would turn out at the event in Barrapo.
We chose Barrapo to marry this thing because it's really what is considered in this country hardcore East Indian town. It's one of the villages and towns that is hardcore East Indian heritage in itself, and therefore the other parts of the country that has always been highlighted will now have new areas that will be highlighted. And Barrapo is a community that is synonymous to the diasporic Indo-Trinidadians.
Another feature of this year's celebrations is the reenactment on Nelson Island of the arrival of Indian indentured laborers to Trinidad.
We start with this reenactment on the Saturday the 25th. Dr. Ramlal said, while we may not, we only have a few persons going on the island, because right now we recognize that the capacity for the island is about 200 persons. Right, so we find that on the 25th, we would have invited the ambassadors and the diplomats, and we're hoping that the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, His Excellency, would be there. We have extended an invitation to the Prime Minister as well, and we hope that she would have accepted and be there. And we have this reenactment, it will be undertaken by Mr. Victor Edwards and his cast. It should be very interesting.
From 1866 to the end of indentureship, East Indian workers were processed on Nelson Island. Prior to this, they were processed from 1845 to 1865 in Fort San Andreas, which is now the home of a museum in South Key, Port of Spain. The reenactment is expected to cost $1.5 million, which includes restoration of the island, transportation for guests, and other relevant work. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
And we certainly look forward to the Chutney Monarch competition for Indian Arrival Day. And that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 Report, a product of the Government Information Services and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Thank you for joining us.